Nathaniel Pierce slammed the divorce papers onto the mahogany table with such force that his coffee cup rattled. "Sign it, Audrey. $10 million. That's more than generous for someone like you." His voice dripped with contempt as he stared at the woman who'd been his wife for 5 years. "You've contributed nothing to this marriage, nothing to my empire. You're dead weight." Audrey sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her face unreadable. Nathaniel's mistress Victoria smirked from the doorway, already imagining herself as the new Mrs. Pierce. "Well," Nathaniel snapped, "are you going to make this difficult?" Audrey reached for the pen and without a single word signed every page. Then she stood, pushed the papers back across the table, and walked toward the door. "Keep your money, Nathaniel," she said quietly. "I don't need it." Before we continue with what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and stay until the end to see how this story unfolds. Comment below with the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Nathaniel watched Audrey's retreating figure with satisfaction bordering on glee. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, he turned to Victoria with a triumphant grin. "Finally, 5 years of carrying that burden is over." Victoria crossed the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "I still can't believe she just walked away from $10 million. Is she stupid or just pathetic?" "Both." Nathaniel laughed, loosening his tie. "She knows she'll never get a better offer. That woman has nothing. No family worth mentioning, no career, no connections. I plucked her out of obscurity, gave her everything, and she couldn't even give me a decent conversation at dinner parties." "Well, she's someone else's problem now," Victoria purred, wrapping her arms around his neck. "And we can finally be together publicly. Mrs. Victoria Pierce has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" Nathaniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it dismissively, expecting another congratulatory message from one of his yes men. Instead, his expression shifted slightly. "That's odd." "What?" "James Chen just canceled our lunch meeting. Says something urgent came up." Nathaniel frowned. "We've had that meeting scheduled for 3 months. He never cancels." "He's probably just busy," Victoria said, already bored with the topic. "Come on, let's celebrate. I made reservations at Lumiere." But Nathaniel's phone buzzed again. Then again. He pulled away from Victoria, his jaw tightening as he read message after message. "What the hell? What's wrong?" "Marcus Fitzgerald just pulled out of the Singapore deal. Just like that. No explanation, no negotiation. He's completely out." Nathaniel's fingers flew across his phone screen. "That's a $2.3 billion acquisition. We've been working on it for 8 months. Victoria's smile faltered. "Maybe he got cold feet." "Marcus doesn't get cold feet. The man once closed a deal during his own father's funeral." Nathaniel was already dialing. "Something's wrong." His assistant Brian answered on the first ring. "Mr. Pierce, I've been trying to reach you. What's happening with the Singapore deal?" "Sir, that's not the only issue. 3 of our major suppliers just terminated their contracts. Simultaneously. I've never seen anything like it." The blood drained from Nathaniel's face. "What do you mean, terminated? We have ironclad agreements." "They're invoking force majeure clauses, citing unforeseen changes in market conditions. Their lawyers sent everything over an hour ago. It's airtight, sir. I've had our legal team review it." "That's impossible. Those suppliers have worked with us for years. Get me Richard Sato on the phone. Now." "Sir, I tried. He's not taking calls. None of them are." Nathaniel ended the call and immediately dialed Richard Sato's direct line, the number that bypassed all assistants and secretaries. It rang once, then went to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. "This doesn't make sense." Victoria was scrolling through her own phone, her face pale. "Nathaniel, Twitter is exploding. Someone leaked that Pierce Industries might be facing major financial difficulties. The stock is already down 4%. Who the hell leaked?" Nathaniel stopped mid-sentence as his phone rang. The caller ID showed Thomas Warren, his oldest investor and mentor. "Thomas, thank God. Listen, I don't know what's happening, but—" "Nathaniel." Thomas's voice was cold formal. Nothing like the warm, paternal tone Nathaniel was used to. "I'm calling as a courtesy to inform you that I'm divesting all my holdings in Pierce Industries effective immediately." "You're what, Thomas? We've known each other for 15 years. Whatever you've heard, this isn't personal, Nathaniel. It's business. I've received information that suggests Pierce Industries is no longer a sound investment. I'm protecting my assets. What information from who? I'm not at liberty to say. Goodbye, Nathaniel. The line went dead. Nathaniel stood frozen, his phone still pressed to his ear. Victoria was saying something, but her voice sounded distant, muffled. His phone buzzed with an alert: Pierce Industries stock down 9% and falling. Then another message from Brian: emergency board meeting requested by 3 board members. They're invoking their rights under the corporate charter. This can't be happening, Nathaniel muttered. This can't be happening. His phone rang again, then again, then again. Every call brought worse news: a major client pulling a contract, a key executive resigning effective immediately, a prominent business magazine requesting comment on rumors of insolvency. Within 2 hours, Nathaniel's perfectly ordered world had tilted on its axis. He stood in his penthouse office looking out over the San Francisco skyline, trying to make sense of the chaos. There has to be a connection, he said aloud. This is too coordinated to be coincidence. Victoria, who'd been stress-eating chocolate truffles on his couch, looked up. What do you mean? Everything falling apart at once. Suppliers, investors, clients, all moving in perfect synchronization. Nathaniel's mind raced. Someone is orchestrating this. Someone with enough power to coordinate multiple major players across different industries. Who would have that kind of reach? And why? Nathaniel's phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. Breaking mysterious investment firm acquires controlling interest in Pacific Logistics, outbidding Pierce Industries. He read the article twice, his blood running cold. Pacific Logistics had been the cornerstone of the Singapore deal. Whoever bought it had just stolen his entire expansion strategy. The firm is called Sinclair Holdings, he read aloud. Never heard of them. But something about that name tickled the back of his mind. Sinclair. Why did that sound familiar? His office door burst open. Brian rushed in, tablet in hand, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. Sir, you need to see this. I've been doing research on everyone who pulled out today, trying to find a connection. And every single one of them, the suppliers, the investors, even the clients, they all have secondary business relationships with companies owned by or affiliated with Sinclair Holdings. It's like a spider web. Sinclair is connected to everything. Nathaniel grabbed this tablet, scrolling through Brian's research. The connections were subtle but undeniable. A supplier's parent company had Sinclair Holdings as a silent partner. An investor's hedge fund had received a major capital injection from a Sinclair subsidiary last year. On and on it went. Who the hell runs Sinclair Holdings? That's the weird part, sir. I can't find anything. No CEO listed publicly, no board members, no corporate filings beyond the bare minimum. It's like a ghost company, except it controls billions in assets. Nathaniel's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Pierce? The voice was male professional, utterly neutral. This is Marcus Chen from Sinclair Holdings. I'm calling to inform you that we've acquired several assets that were previously under consideration by Pierce Industries. We wanted to extend a courtesy notification. Courtesy? Nathaniel's voice shook with rage. You're systematically destroying my company and you call it courtesy. We're simply engaging in standard business practices, Mr. Pierce. Acquisitions, investments, strategic partnerships. Surely you understand how the free market works. Who do you work for? Who owns Sinclair Holdings? There was a pause, and Nathaniel could have sworn he heard amusement in the man's voice when he responded. That information is confidential. Have a good evening, Mr. Pierce. The line went dead. Nathaniel threw his phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Victoria jumped, chocolate falling from her fingers. Nathaniel, get out! What? Get out! He roared. I need to think. Victoria scrambled to gather her things and fled the office. Nathaniel stood alone in the gathering darkness, watching the city lights flicker to life below. Somewhere out there, someone was pulling strings, dismantling everything he'd built. Someone with resources and connections that dwarfed his own. Someone who'd waited until today to strike. Today, the day he'd divorced Audrey. The thought came unbidden, ridiculous. What could Audrey possibly have to do with any of this? She was nobody. She came from nowhere. She had nothing. Except, What did he actually know about her background? They'd met at a charity gala 5 years ago. She'd been quiet, elegant, standing alone by the window. He'd been charmed by her beauty and mystified by her refusal to be impressed by his wealth. She'd told him she worked in family business consulting, but never elaborated. He'd never pushed too wrapped up in his own world to care. Family business, Sinclair. No, it was impossible, ridiculous, paranoid thinking. But Nathaniel hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by ignoring his instincts. He called his head of security. "Michael, I need you to dig into someone's background. Complete workup. Everything you can find." "Sure thing, Mr. Pierce. Who's the target?" Nathaniel hesitated, feeling foolish. "Audrey Pierce. My ex-wife. Maiden name." He paused. He'd never actually known her maiden name. She'd never talked about her family. He'd assumed they were dead or estranged or simply unimportant. "I don't know. That's what I need you to find out." "On it." Nathaniel poured himself a scotch and waited. The sun set fully. His office grew dark. He didn't turn on the lights. An hour later, Michael called back. "Mr. Pierce, I've got preliminary results, but this is strange." "Strange how? There's almost nothing. Audrey Pierce appears in records 5 years ago when you got married, but before that, it's like she didn't exist. No social media history, no employment records, no educational background. I can verify. Everyone has a digital footprint." "Exactly, which means either she's been living completely off-grid or—" Michael paused. "Or someone with serious resources has scrubbed her history clean. The kind of scrubbing that costs millions and requires connections to government databases." Nathaniel's hand tightened around his glass. "Keep digging. I want to know everything." Over the next 3 hours, the situation deteriorated further. Pierce Industries stock entered freefall, dropping 28% before trading was halted. 2 more board members called emergency meetings. A prominent Wall Street analyst released a scathing report questioning the company's fundamentals. And through it all, Nathaniel couldn't shake the growing certainty that somehow, impossibly, this was connected to Audrey. At midnight, Michael called again. "Mr. Pierce, I found something. It took calling in every favor I had, but I got access to sealed court documents from a case 15 years ago. There was a minor mentioned in protective custody. The name was redacted, but the case involved a family named Sinclair." Nathaniel stopped breathing. "I cross-referenced the timeline with Audrey's age, and it matches. Mr. Pierce, I think your ex-wife might be connected to the Sinclair family, and if she is—" Michael's voice dropped. "Sir, you need to understand what that means. The Sinclairs aren't just wealthy. They're the kind of wealthy that doesn't show up on Forbes lists because they own the infrastructure those lists depend on." "That's a myth," Nathaniel said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Urban legend. Secret trillionaire families don't exist." "Maybe not, but Sinclair Holdings is very real, and it's moving against you with surgical precision. Someone is coordinating this attack, and they have unlimited resources." Nathaniel ended the call and sat in the darkness, his mind reeling. If Audrey was connected to this Sinclair family, if she had access to that kind of power and wealth, then why had she spent 5 years living quietly as his wife? Why had she endured his dismissiveness, his contempt, his eventual betrayal? Unless she hadn't been enduring anything, unless she'd been choosing it. The thought was terrifying. His phone buzzed one final time, a text from an unknown number. "You should have offered more than money, Nathaniel. Some things can't be bought back once they're given away." The message had no signature, but Nathaniel knew with absolute certainty who had sent it. Nathaniel didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office, the cryptic text message burning in his mind, watching the pre-market numbers crawl across his screen as Asian markets opened. Pierce Industries was being shorted aggressively. Someone had bet billions that his company would collapse, and the way things were going, they were going to win. At 6 a.m, his phone rang. It was David Park, his CFO, and the man sounded like he'd been crying. "Nathaniel, we need to talk. Now." "I'm listening." "Not over the phone, my office, 10 minutes. When Nathaniel arrived, David wasn't alone. The entire executive team sat around the conference table, their faces grim. Jennifer Martinez, his COO, spoke first. "We've been up all night running numbers. Nathaniel, if this trajectory continues, we're looking at bankruptcy within 6 months, maybe less." "That's impossible. We have $2 billion in reserves." "Had. David corrected. "Half our credit lines were called in overnight. The banks are spooked. They're saying our debt-to-equity ratio makes us too risky." Nathaniel slammed his hand on the table. "We've had the same ratio for 3 years. Nothing has fundamentally changed." "Except perception," Jennifer said quietly. "In finance, perception is reality. Someone started a rumor, and now it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every hour that passes, more investors bail. More clients get nervous. More partners distance themselves." Michael Zhang, the head of operations, cleared his throat. "There's something else. Our shipping contracts. Every single one of them goes through intermediary logistics companies, right? Standard practice. So I started tracing the ownership structure of those intermediaries. Nathaniel, they all connect back to Sinclair Holdings. Every single one. We don't actually control our own supply chain. We never did. We've been operating on borrowed infrastructure." The room went silent. Nathaniel felt the walls closing in. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if Sinclair Holdings decides to cut us off, we can't get products to market. We can't fulfill orders. We can't operate." Michael's voice cracked. "We're dead in the water. How is that possible? I built this company from nothing." David pulled out a folder, his hands shaking. "Nathaniel, I went back through our financial records, all the way to the beginning. Do you remember your first major investor, the one who gave you $500,000 when you were just starting out?" "Of course, it was a private equity firm. They took their returns and moved on years ago." "I thought so too, but I dug deeper. That firm was a shell company, and the capital came from a trust, the Sinclair Family Trust." Nathaniel's blood turned to ice. "No. They've owned a piece of your company since the beginning. It's buried under so many layers of corporate structure that it's nearly impossible to trace, but it's there. And according to the original investment agreement, there's a clause." David slid a document across the table. "If the primary shareholder engages in conduct deemed detrimental to the company's core values, the trust can exercise an option to acquire all associated patents and intellectual property." That clause has never been enforced. It's boilerplate protection language. "Nathaniel," Jennifer said gently, "what exactly constitutes detrimental conduct is defined by the trust's administrators. And guess who administers the trust?" Nathaniel didn't need to ask. He knew. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "What do you want?" The voice was female this time, crisp and professional. "Mr. Pierce, my name is Catherine Winters. I'm the Chief Legal Counsel for Sinclair Holdings. I'm calling to inform you that we will be exercising our option on the patents held by Pierce Industries, effective immediately. You'll receive formal notification within the hour." "You can't do this. I'll fight you in court for years." "You certainly can try. But Mr. Pierce, have you checked your legal retainer lately?" There was a pause. "Your law firm withdrew representation this morning. Conflict of interest, they said. Seems they also represent Sinclair Holdings in other matters. Such an unfortunate coincidence." The call ended. Nathaniel looked around the table at his executive team. "We need to find new lawyers, the best litigation team in the country." David shook his head. "With what money, our credit is frozen, our stock is worthless, and our cash reserves are being drained by margin calls. Nathaniel, we can't afford a legal battle. We can't afford anything." The next 72 hours were a masterclass in controlled demolition. Every move Nathaniel made was countered before he could complete it. He tried to secure emergency funding. Every potential investor suddenly had scheduling conflicts. He reached out to business partners for support. They all had the same response, as if reading from a script: "We need to protect our own interests right now." He attempted to go public to paint Sinclair Holdings as a predatory entity destroying American business. But every journalist he contacted either didn't return his calls or published articles questioning Pierce Industries' business practices instead. Someone had gotten to them first. On the 4th day, Nathaniel received a formal invitation. It was embossed on heavy cream cardstock, the kind that cost a fortune, and announced wealth without saying a word. The Global Innovation Summit in New York, 3 days away. He'd been planning to attend for months, scheduled to give a keynote speech about the future of technology. But this invitation was different. It listed him as an attendee, not a speaker, and at the bottom, in elegant script, "We look forward to your presence as we announce a new era in global commerce." Victoria found him staring at the invitation in his ravaged office. She'd been scarce lately, claiming she needed space to process everything. "Are you going to go?" she asked. "I don't know. It might be a trap. Or it might be an opportunity. Nathaniel, you need allies. That summit will have every major player in attendance. Maybe you can find someone willing to stand against Sinclair." She was right. He had nothing left to lose. The flight to New York was surreal. Nathaniel flew commercial for the first time in a decade because his company jet had been quietly repossessed. He sat in first class surrounded by business travelers who didn't recognize him and felt invisible. A week ago, he'd been one of the most powerful men in San Francisco. Now he was just another passenger. Brian met him at JFK looking exhausted. "Sir, I have the preliminary agenda for the summit. You're not going to like it." "Just tell me." "The keynote speaker isn't listed. It just says special announcement by the summit's primary sponsor." Brian hesitated. "Nathaniel, the primary sponsor is Sinclair Holdings. They bought the sponsorship 3 months ago, right after you filed for divorce." Nathaniel felt his stomach drop. 3 months ago. This had been planned from the beginning. Every move, every countermove orchestrated with precision. He was walking into their event on their terms with no power and no options. "Maybe I shouldn't go." "Sir, every major tech CEO will be there, every venture capitalist, every hedge fund manager, every person who matters in our industry. If you don't show it, looks like you're hiding, like you've already lost." "I have lost." "Not publicly, not yet." The summit was held at the Javits Center, a massive glass and steel structure overlooking the Hudson River. Nathaniel arrived early, hoping to network to find someone sympathetic to his plight. But the moment he entered, conversation stopped. People who'd been his friends for years suddenly needed to check their phones or refresh their drinks. He was toxic now, and everyone knew it. He found a seat in this main auditorium, watching it fill with the elite of the business world. On the stage, a massive screen displayed the summit logo alongside Sinclair Holdings' emblem, a stylized globe wrapped in elegant silver lines. It was beautiful and vaguely threatening. The lights dimmed. A voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Global Innovation Summit. We are honored to present this year's keynote address delivered by the founder and CEO of Sinclair Holdings." The crowd murmured with curiosity. Nobody knew who ran Sinclair. It was the industry's greatest mystery. The stage lights came up, illuminating a lone figure walking from the wings. Nathaniel's heart stopped. It was Audrey. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her hair pulled back in a sleek bun, diamond earrings catching the light. But it wasn't the clothes or the jewelry that transformed her. It was the way she moved, the confidence, the power. This wasn't the quiet woman who'd sat across from him at dinner parties saying nothing. This was someone else entirely, someone who owned the room. The audience erupted in whispers. Nathaniel heard fragments around him. "That's her, the Sinclair heir. I thought she was a myth. How old is she? How much is she worth?" Audrey reached the podium and waited. The room fell silent immediately. When she spoke, her voice was clear and commanding, nothing like the soft tones Nathaniel remembered. "Good evening. My name is Audrey Sinclair, and I'm here to talk about the future of global commerce." Nathaniel couldn't breathe. Sinclair. Her maiden name was Sinclair. He'd been married to her for 5 years and never knew. "For the past century," Audrey continued, "business has been dominated by visible empires. Companies that put their names on buildings, their faces on magazine covers. They mistake visibility for power. But true power doesn't announce itself. True power is infrastructure." She clicked a remote, and the screen behind her lit up with a global map. Red lines connected dots across every continent. Sinclair Holdings controls 73% of the world's deepwater ports. We own the largest rare earth mineral reserves outside of China. We operate the logistics networks that move 60% of all manufactured goods. When you buy a product drive on a road turn on a light, you're probably using infrastructure we built. The audience was transfixed. Nathaniel felt sick. "We don't compete with companies like Pierce Industries," Audrey said, and Nathaniel flinched at hearing his name. "We enable them, or we don't. We are the foundation they build on, and when we choose to withdraw that foundation, well." She smiled slightly. "The results speak for themselves." A slide appeared showing Pierce Industries' stock chart. The downward trajectory was brutal. Someone in the audience gasped. "I'm not here to gloat," Audrey said. "I'm here to announce a new platform, Sinclair Global Systems, a fully integrated supply chain solution that will revolutionize how products move from creation to consumer. It launches in 6 months, and it will make every existing logistics technology obsolete." Another slide. This one showed a sleek interface clearly years ahead of anything else on the market. Nathaniel recognized elements of it. They were similar to the proprietary systems Pierce Industries had been developing, the systems built on those original patents funded by Sinclair money. "We're offering partnerships to select companies," Audrey continued. "Those with vision, those with integrity, those who understand that business is built on relationships, not exploitation." She looked directly at Nathaniel. Their eyes met across the vast auditorium, and in that moment, he saw everything he'd missed. The intelligence he'd dismissed, the strength he'd ignored, the power he'd never bothered to look for. "Some people," Audrey said, her gaze never leaving his, "believe they built their empires alone. They think loyalty is weakness. They think silence means insignificance. They're wrong." The audience followed her gaze. Hundreds of faces turned to look at Nathaniel. He wanted to disappear, to run, to wake up from this nightmare. But he was frozen. Audrey clicked to the next slide. "I'd like to introduce our first major partner. Please welcome Marcus Fitzgerald of Fitzgerald Enterprises." Marcus walked onto the stage, the same man who'd pulled out of Nathaniel's Singapore deal. He shook Audrey's hand warmly like old friends. "Thank you, Audrey. We're excited about this partnership. Sinclair Global Systems will transform our entire operation." One by one they came out, every person who'd abandoned Nathaniel, every investor who'd pulled funding, every partner who'd terminated contracts. They all took the stage, smiling, shaking Audrey's hand, announcing their commitment to Sinclair Holdings. It was a parade of betrayals, except they weren't betrayals at all. They'd simply chosen the winning side. They'd chosen her. When the presentation ended, the audience gave Audrey a standing ovation. Nathaniel remained seated, unable to move. People filed past him, some throwing pitying glances, others pretending not to see him at all. Victoria appeared at his elbow. "Nathaniel, we should go." "She planned this," he whispered. "All of it. Every moment. She knew exactly how this would end. Nathaniel, I divorced the most powerful woman in the world, and I offered her $10 million like I was doing her a favor." Victoria tugged his arm. "People are staring. Let's go." But before they could leave, a man in an expensive suit approached. "Mr. Pierce, Ms. Sinclair would like a word. In private." Nathaniel looked at Victoria. She squeezed his hand. "Do you want me to come?" "No. This is something I have to face alone." He followed the man through a labyrinth of corridors to a private conference room. Audrey was inside, standing by the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. She didn't turn when he entered. "Why?" Nathaniel asked. His voice sounded broken. "If you had all this power, all this wealth, why did you marry me? Why did you stay for 5 years? Why did you endure my contempt and my dismissiveness and my—" He couldn't finish. Audrey finally turned. Up close, she looked tired. "Because I wanted to see if someone could love me for who I was, not what I had. I wanted a normal life, a simple life. And for a while, I thought maybe we could have that. I never knew who you were." "No, you never asked." She crossed her arms. 5 years, Nathaniel. 5 years we were married, and you never once asked about my family, my history, my dreams. You assumed I was nobody because it was convenient to believe that. You thought I was lucky to have you. You thought I should be grateful. You thought I had nothing to offer." Audrey's voice was steady, but her eyes held pain. "Do you know what it's like to be invisible to the person who's supposed to love you? To sit at dinner parties while you introduce me as my wife, like I'm an accessory to watch you build an empire and never once ask if I had any ideas to contribute? Audrey, I protected you," she continued. "Every day of our marriage, I protected you. When suppliers tried to overcharge you, I had them replaced. When investors tried to manipulate you, I had them blocked. When competitors tried to destroy you, I quietly crushed them. You built Pierce Industries on my infrastructure with my money under my protection, and you never knew." Nathaniel felt tears burning his eyes. "Then why did you let me divorce you? Why didn't you stop me? Because you chose someone else. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth keeping. I wasn't going to beg you to see my value, Nathaniel. I have more self-respect than that. So you destroyed me instead. No. Audrey's voice softened. I stopped protecting you. That's all. I removed my foundation and let you stand on your own. This is what your empire looks like without me. This is what you built alone. She paused. Nothing. The word hung in the air between them like a guillotine blade. What happens now? Nathaniel asked. That depends on you. In 3 days, Sinclair Holdings will formally acquire the patents that were funded by our original investment. Pierce Industries will be an empty shell. You can fight it, lose everything in legal fees, and end up with nothing. Or you can accept reality. And then what? I just disappear. Start over from scratch. Audrey picked up her bag. People start over every day, Nathaniel. Maybe it'll be good for you. Maybe you'll learn something about humility, about gratitude, about seeing the people around you as human beings instead of props in your story. She walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I didn't enjoy this. I didn't want to hurt you, but you made your choice, and choices have consequences. Audrey, wait. Nathaniel's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved everything, and I was too blind and too arrogant to see it. She looked back at him, and for a moment he saw a flash of the woman he'd married. Soft, kind, human. Yes, she said quietly. I did deserve better. Goodbye, Nathaniel. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. Nathaniel stood in that empty conference room for 20 minutes after Audrey left, staring at the door like she might come back. She didn't. When he finally emerged, Victoria was waiting in the hallway, scrolling through her phone with the practiced indifference of someone already planning their exit. How did it go? She asked without looking up. She's taking everything. The patents, the technology, everything that made Pierce Industries valuable. Victoria's fingers stopped moving when, 3 days, she finally looked at him, and in her eyes, Nathaniel saw the calculation happening in real time. She was measuring his worth against her future, and he was coming up short. I see. That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say, Nathaniel? That we'll get through this together, that love conquers all. Victoria laughed bitterly. You divorced your wife for me, a wife who apparently controlled more wealth than most countries, and now you have nothing. We have nothing. I still have the company building, some assets. We can rebuild. With what money? With what reputation? Victoria shook her head. I'm not built for starting over. I'm built for already there. I thought you were already there. So that's it, you're leaving. I'm being realistic. Something you should try. She gathered her bag. I got a call an hour ago, a headhunter. Apparently one of Sinclair's subsidiary companies is looking for a VP of communications. The salary is triple what I was making. They want me to start next week. Nathaniel felt like he'd been punched. Audrey offered you a job. The recruiter didn't say who recommended me, but the timing is pretty convenient, don't you think? Victoria's smile was thin. She's showing me there's a lifeboat. I'd be stupid not to take it. You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing survival over a sinking ship. There's a difference. Victoria touched his arm, a gesture that once might have been affectionate, but now felt like pity. Goodbye, Nathaniel. I hope you figure things out. She walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the same confidence she'd had when she'd first entered his life. Nathaniel watched her go and felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just a hollow emptiness where emotions should have been. His phone rang. Brian. Sir, we have a problem. Another one. The board just called an emergency meeting. They're voting on whether to remove you as CEO. It's happening now in San Francisco. They didn't want to wait for you to get back. Nathaniel checked his watch. Even if he left immediately, he couldn't make it in time. Can you conference me in... They specifically said no remote attendance. Nathaniel, I think they planned it this way. They want you out, and they don't want to give you a chance to fight. Who called the meeting? Thomas Warren. He said it's his fiduciary duty to protect shareholder value, and keeping you as CEO poses too great a risk. The same Thomas Warren who'd been his mentor, who'd taught him everything about running a company, who'd stood beside him at his wedding to Audrey and told him he was making a good choice. How many board members are voting to remove me? Brian's silence was answer enough. All of them, Nathaniel said flatly. I'm sorry, sir. I tried to stall them, but they have the votes. It's happening whether you're there or not. Nathaniel ended the call and looked around the hallway. People were streaming past, heading to cocktail receptions and networking events, making deals that would shape industries. A week ago, he would have been one of them. Now he was a ghost already forgotten. He went back to his hotel room, a modest business hotel, because he couldn't afford the Four Seasons anymore. The room smelled like cleaning chemicals and someone else's cologne. He sat on the bed and turned on the television, flipping channels, until he found a financial news network. They were covering the Innovation Summit. In a stunning development, the anchor said, tech billionaire Nathaniel Pierce was effectively ousted from his own company today as the board of Pierce Industries voted unanimously to remove him as CEO. This comes just days after the revelation that Pierce's ex-wife is actually Audrey Sinclair, heir to the Sinclair Holdings fortune estimated to be worth over $4 trillion. $4 trillion. Nathaniel had divorced someone worth $4 trillion and offered her $10 million like he was being generous. The anchor continued. Sources close to the company say Pierce Industries will likely declare bankruptcy within the month. Meanwhile, Sinclair Holdings has announced partnerships with every major player in the tech industry, effectively cornering the market on global logistics and supply chain management. Market analysts are calling it the most sophisticated corporate takeover in modern history. Nathaniel turned off the television. His phone buzzed with messages, reporters wanting comments, former friends offering hollow condolences, lawyers advertising their services. He ignored them all except one from his mother. Nathaniel, I just saw the news. Please call me. I'm worried about you. He called. She answered on the first ring. Oh, sweetheart, are you okay? Not really, Mom. I never liked Victoria, you know. She always seemed like she was waiting for something better to come along. His mother paused. But Audrey, I liked Audrey. She was kind. She listened when people talked. She sent me flowers on my birthday every year. Did you know that? No, of course you didn't. You never paid attention to things like that. His mother's voice was gentle but honest. Nathaniel, I love you. You're my son, and I will always love you. But you made a terrible mistake, and now you have to live with it. I know. Do you? Because from what I'm seeing, you're still thinking about what you lost. Your company, your money, your status. But what about what she lost? That girl gave you 5 years of her life. She could have been anywhere doing anything with anyone, and she chose you. She chose a simple life with you, and you threw it away for someone who just left you the moment things got hard. Nathaniel closed his eyes. What do I do, Mom? You grow up. You learn from this. You become a better man than you were yesterday. She sighed. And maybe in 10 or 20 years, when you've actually changed, you can look back on this and understand what you had. After they hung up, Nathaniel lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. His phone continued buzzing with messages, each one a little piece of his former life falling away. An executive assistant announcing she'd found a new job, a country club revoking his membership due to unpaid fees, a charity organization removing him from their board. The demolition was complete. Audrey hadn't just destroyed his company. She'd erased his entire existence from the world he'd known. 3 days later, Nathaniel returned to San Francisco on a red-eye flight. He took an Uber from the airport because his driver had quit. The man didn't recognize him, which felt appropriate. When they passed the Pierce Industries building, Nathaniel saw workers removing the letters from the facade. The P had already fallen, leaving only Heiress Industries glowing against the morning sky. Rough times for that company, the Uber driver said, following Nathaniel's gaze. My cousin worked there, got laid off yesterday along with 300 other people. No severance, no warning, just told to clear out their desks. I'm sorry, Nathaniel said quietly. Yeah, well, that's what happens when rich guys get too greedy, right? Building empires on other people's backs, then acting surprised when it all falls apart. The driver shook his head. I heard the CEO was married to some secret billionaire and didn't even know it. Can you imagine being that clueless about your own wife? Nathaniel said nothing. When they arrived at his building, he overtipped, which was stupid considering his bank account was approaching zero, but guilt made people do stupid things. His penthouse was exactly as he'd left it, but it felt different. Smaller somehow. Emptier. He walked through rooms that had once hosted parties for hundreds of people, and now the silence was deafening. On the kitchen counter, he found a stack of mail forwarded from his office. Bills mostly. Lots of bills. And at the bottom, a legal envelope from Sinclair Holdings. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a formal notice of patent acquisition along with a check, not for millions, for exactly $10. The memo line read, "More than generous for someone like you." Nathaniel laughed. It was a broken, desperate sound that echoed off the marble countertops. She'd used his own words against him, the same dismissive phrase he'd used when offering her the divorce settlement. She'd returned it with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but some part of him hoped it might be Audrey. It wasn't. "Mr. Pierce, this is Janet Reynolds from First National Bank. I'm calling regarding your mortgage. You're currently 60 days past due, and we need to discuss payment arrangements. I'll have the money transferred by Monday." "Sir, our records show your accounts have insufficient funds. We've already attempted to process payment 3 times. Nathaniel sat down heavily. "How much do I owe?" "The total outstanding balance, including late fees, is $2.3 million. He had about $40,000 in his personal account. Everything else had been tied up in stock and assets that were now worthless. I need time. Mr. Pierce, given the current situation with your company, we're going to need to accelerate the loan. We'll require full payment within 30 days, or we'll be forced to begin foreclosure proceedings." After she hung up, Nathaniel walked through his penthouse, really looking at it for the first time in years. The custom Italian furniture, the original artwork, the wine collection worth hundreds of thousands. All of it was expensive and none of it meant anything. He'd bought it because rich people were supposed to have nice things, not because he actually cared about design or art or wine. The doorbell rang. Nathaniel opened it to find 2 men in suits. "Nathaniel Pierce." "Yes. We're from the Securities and Exchange Commission. We have some questions about trading activity in Pierce Industries stock over the past 2 weeks. May we come in?" The investigation took 6 hours. They wanted to know about every transaction, every communication, every decision made during the collapse. Nathaniel answered honestly because he had nothing left to hide. When they finally left, one of the agents paused at the door. "For what it's worth, Mr. Pierce, we've been looking into Sinclair Holdings too. Everything they did was completely legal. Aggressive, calculated, ruthless even, but legal. Whoever planned this knew exactly where every line was and stayed just on the right side of it." "That's supposed to make me feel better." "No, it's supposed to make you understand what you were up against." The agent adjusted his briefcase. "You went to war with someone who controls the infrastructure of global commerce. You never stood a chance." That night, Nathaniel got drunk for the first time in 15 years. He sat on his balcony with a bottle of scotch and watched the city lights blur together. Somewhere out there, Audrey was probably having dinner with world leaders, or closing billion-dollar deals, or doing whatever trillionaires did with their evenings. And he was here watching his empire crumble in real time. His phone buzzed. A text from David Park. "Nathaniel, I'm sorry to do this over text, but I've accepted a position with Fitzgerald Enterprises, effective immediately. I can't go down with the ship. I have a family to support. I hope you understand." Nathaniel did understand. He understood that loyalty only existed when things were going well. He understood that all the people he'd called friends were really just business associates who'd stick around as long as he was useful. He understood that he'd built his entire life on a foundation of sand, and the tide had finally come in. Another message. This one from Jennifer Martinez. "I'm out too. I'm sorry. Sinclair offered me a role I can't refuse. I wish things had gone differently." Then Michael Jang, then his head of marketing, then his VP of sales. One by one, his entire executive team abandoned ship, and every single one of them mentioned Sinclair Holdings in their goodbye messages. Audrey was offering them lifeboats while watching him drown. She was being merciful to everyone except the person who'd hurt her most. At 3 a.m, Nathaniel's phone rang again. He was too drunk to check the caller ID. "What?" "Nathaniel, it's Thomas Warren. I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. What truth? That you backstabbed me? I already figured that out. I didn't have a choice. Thomas's voice was heavy with regret. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from someone at Sinclair Holdings. They told me they could either destroy my company the way they were destroying yours, or I could cooperate and they'd make me whole. They gave me 24 hours to decide. So you chose to save yourself. I chose to protect my investors, my employees, my family. Nathaniel, they showed me what they were capable of. They had information about my business that I didn't even know. They had leverage I didn't know existed. They could have crushed me without breaking a sweat. Thomas paused. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm also not going to apologize for surviving. Did Audrey make that call? I don't know. I never spoke to her directly, but whoever I talked to, they had her authority. Thomas sighed. For what it's worth, they offered the same deal to everyone. Join Sinclair or get destroyed. Every person who abandoned you was given that choice, and every single one of them chose survival. Everyone except me. You weren't given a choice. You were the target. This was personal for her, and she wanted you to feel every moment of it. After Thomas hung up, Nathaniel stumbled inside and collapsed on his couch. His phone fell from his hand, and as he drifted into unconsciousness, he heard it buzz one more time. In the morning, when he woke with a crushing headache, he found the message. It was from Audrey. Just 3 words. I'm sorry too. Nathaniel read it 17 times, trying to decode some hidden meaning, some indication that she regretted what she'd done. But there was nothing else. Just those 3 words sent at 4 in the morning, probably from the other side of the world. She was sorry. For what? For destroying him, for marrying him in the first place, for giving him 5 years only to take it all back. He would never know. And that more than anything else was what broke him. Not the loss of his company, or his money, or his status. The knowledge that he'd been married to someone extraordinary and had treated her like she was ordinary, that he'd had everything and hadn't valued it until it was gone, that he'd made the biggest mistake of his life and couldn't even hate her for punishing him because he deserved every moment of it. Nathaniel deleted the message and stood up. His reflection in the window showed a man he barely recognized. Unshaven, disheveled, broken. This was who he really was without the empire, without the money, without the illusion of power. Just a man who'd mistaken fortune for character and lost everything because of it. His phone rang one more time. His lawyer. Nathaniel, we need to discuss bankruptcy proceedings. The creditors are circling. If you file now, you might be able to protect some personal assets, but you need to decide quickly. Do it, Nathaniel said. File the papers. I'm done fighting. Are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. Nathaniel looked around his empty penthouse at the expensive things that meant nothing at the life he'd built on borrowed foundations. I'm sure there's nothing left to save. The bankruptcy filing made headlines within hours. Business networks ran the story on loop, each anchor using words like spectacular fall, and cautionary tale, and hubris. Nathaniel watched from a coffee shop because his cable had been shut off. The barista recognized him and offered a sympathetic smile that somehow made everything worse. His phone rang constantly. Creditors, lawyers, reporters. He stopped answering. What was the point? Every conversation ended the same way. He had nothing left to give. On the 3rd day after filing, Nathaniel received an eviction notice. The bank was foreclosing immediately, no 30-day grace period. Someone had expedited the process. He had 72 hours to vacate the penthouse he'd lived in for 8 years. He called his lawyer. They can't do this. There are legal procedures. They followed every procedure, Nathaniel, to the letter. Someone at the bank really wants you out, and they have the authority to make it happen fast. His lawyer paused. Do you have somewhere to go? Nathaniel hung up without answering because he didn't know. His parents lived in a modest house in Sacramento. He could go there tail between his legs and admit that his mother had been right about everything. Or he could get a hotel room until his credit cards maxed out, which would be about 2 days. He chose his parents' house. The drive to Sacramento took 2 hours in his Porsche, which would be repossessed by the end of the week. His father opened the door, took one look at him, and pulled him into a hug without saying anything. Nathaniel broke down on the doorstep, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a child. His father just held him and let him cry. Come on, son, let's get you inside. His childhood bedroom had been converted to a guest room, but the desk where he'd done homework was still there, along with some old trophies from high school debate team. Nathaniel sat on the bed and felt like he'd time-traveled back to being 17, before the empire, before the money, before Audrey. His mother brought him soup he didn't eat and sat beside him in silence. Finally, she spoke. "Your father and I raised you to be better than this." "I know. We didn't raise you to treat people as disposable. We didn't raise you to value money over character. We didn't raise you to be cruel." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "Somewhere along the way, you forgot who you were. You forgot where you came from. You became someone we didn't recognize." "I'm sorry, Mom." "Don't apologize to me. I'm not the one you hurt." She stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow you start figuring out how to be a decent human being again." That night, Nathaniel couldn't sleep. He lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of his marriage to Audrey. The small things he'd ignored. The way she'd always known exactly what he needed before he asked. The way she'd supported his business decisions without taking credit. The way she'd tolerated his mother's unannounced visits and his father's long-winded stories. The way she'd made their house feel like a home even though he was never there. He'd thought she was lucky to have him, but the truth was the opposite. He'd been the lucky one, and he'd thrown it away. His phone buzzed. An email from Brian. "Nathaniel, I hope you're doing okay. I wanted you to know that Sinclair Holdings made an announcement today. They're hiring all the laid-off Pierce Industries employees, every single one, same salary, better benefits, and they're crediting their previous years of service. People are calling it unprecedented." Nathaniel read it twice. Audrey was taking care of his people. The employees he'd fired without severance, the workers who'd lost their jobs because of his failures, she was protecting them. She was being merciful to everyone except him. Another email arrived, this one from a business reporter requesting an interview. "Mr. Pierce, I'm writing a feature on the fall of Pierce Industries and the rise of Sinclair Holdings. I'd love to get your perspective on what happened, particularly regarding your relationship with Audrey Sinclair. Sources say you didn't know who she was during your entire marriage. Is that true?" Nathaniel deleted it without responding. He didn't want to relive his stupidity for public consumption. Over the next week, the full scope of the disaster became clear. Pierce Industries declared bankruptcy. The company was liquidated, its assets sold off piece by piece. The building went to a real estate developer. The technology went to Sinclair Holdings for pennies on the dollar. Even the office furniture was auctioned off. Nathaniel's personal assets were seized. His cars, his art collection, his wine cellar, everything that could be sold to pay creditors. He was allowed to keep some clothes and personal items. That was it. 38 years of life reduced to 3 suitcases. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Yes. Mr. Pierce, this is Gregory Hammond. I'm an attorney representing Sinclair Holdings. We need to discuss a matter regarding the original investment in Pierce Industries." Nathaniel's stomach dropped. "What about it?" "As you know, Sinclair Holdings exercised its option to acquire the patents developed using the original seed funding. However, there's an additional clause in the investment agreement that's now being triggered." "What clause?" "In the event of bankruptcy, any intellectual property trade secrets or proprietary processes developed during the term of the original investment revert to Sinclair Holdings. This includes your client list's business methodologies and strategic plans." "You're taking everything. We're exercising our legal rights under a contract you signed 14 years ago. The documents will be delivered to your attorney tomorrow." Hammond paused. "Ms. Sinclair wanted me to inform you personally. She said you deserve to know exactly how much you never actually owned." The call ended. Nathaniel sat in his childhood bedroom and laughed until tears ran down his face. She'd owned him from the beginning. Every success, every achievement, every milestone had been built on her foundation. Without her money, her infrastructure, her silent support, he would have failed 14 years ago. His entire empire had been a lie. His father knocked on the door. "Nathaniel, you okay in there?" "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you met Mom, what made you know she was the one?" His father sat down in the desk chair. "That's an odd question, but okay. I knew because she saw me. Really saw me. Not the person I was trying to be, not the successful businessman I wanted to become, just me. The guy who told bad jokes and forgot important dates and sometimes left the toilet seat up. He smiled. And she loved me anyway. That's rare, son. Most people love the idea of you or what you can do for them or who you make them look like. But your mother loved the real me. Flaws and all. I think Audrey did that for me, Nathaniel said quietly. And I never noticed. Then you're a damn fool. His father's voice was gentle but honest. But being a fool isn't permanent. You can learn. You can grow. You can become someone worthy of that kind of love, even if it's too late to get it back. The next morning, Nathaniel woke to his phone ringing. His lawyer. Nathaniel, I need you to come to my office, now. Something's happened. What now? What else can they take? Just come. Trust me. Nathaniel borrowed his father's car and drove to downtown Sacramento. His lawyer's office was modest, nothing like the high-rise firm he'd used when he was wealthy. They met in a small conference room that smelled like old coffee. What's this about? Nathaniel asked. His lawyer slid a folder across the table. This arrived this morning by courier. It's from Sinclair Holdings' legal department. Nathaniel opened it, expecting more bad news. Instead, he found a settlement offer. Sinclair Holdings was willing to release him from all outstanding debts related to the original investment. No claims on his future earnings, no legal liability, complete financial release. I don't understand. Why would they do this? Keep reading. The second page outlined the terms. In exchange for the debt release, Nathaniel had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. He could never speak publicly about his marriage to Audrey Sinclair. He could never write a book, give interviews, or discuss their relationship in any forum. Complete silence in perpetuity. She's buying my silence, Nathaniel said. She's giving you a clean slate, his lawyer corrected. Without this, you'd be paying off debts for the rest of your life. You'd never be able to start over. This is mercy, Nathaniel, even if it doesn't feel like it. Nathaniel stared at the papers. Audrey was offering him freedom, but at the cost of his story. He could never tell anyone what had really happened. He could never explain, never defend himself, never share his side. He would have to live with the public narrative that he was an idiot who didn't know his own wife was a trillionaire. There's something else, his lawyer said. Page 5. Nathaniel flipped ahead. Buried in the legal language was a clause. If he signed the NDA and remained in compliance for 5 years, Sinclair Holdings would provide a one-time payment of $500,000, enough to start over, enough to rebuild a modest life. She's still taking care of me, Nathaniel whispered. Or she's making sure you stay silent. Depends on how you look at it. His lawyer leaned back. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign and move on or refuse and spend the next 20 years drowning in debt. Nathaniel took the papers home. He sat at his parents' kitchen table and read every word 3 times. His mother watched from the doorway. What does it say? Audrey is offering me a way out. If I promise never to talk about our marriage, she'll clear my debts and give me money to start over. His mother poured herself coffee and sat down. And if you don't sign, I'm destroyed completely. No chance of recovery. So she's giving you a choice between silence and ruin. Yes. His mother sipped her coffee. What do you want to do? I want to tell everyone what happened. I want to explain that she orchestrated everything, that she manipulated the entire situation, that she used her power to crush me. Nathaniel's voice rose. I want people to know the truth. And what truth is that? That you divorced her? That you treated her poorly? That you didn't value what you had? His mother's voice was sharp. Nathaniel, even if you could tell your story, what would it change? People would still see you as the man who didn't know his own wife. The man who threw away something precious for something cheap. Talking about it won't change that. It'll just make you look bitter. So I should just take her money and disappear. You should take responsibility for what you did, accept the consequences, and use this opportunity to become a better person. She stood. Sign the papers, sweetheart. Not because she's forcing you to, but because keeping quiet is the decent thing to do. She doesn't deserve to have her private pain turned into public entertainment. Nathaniel sat alone in the kitchen for hours. Outside, he could hear neighborhood kids playing, dogs barking, the normal sounds of ordinary life. He'd spent so long chasing extraordinary that he'd forgotten what ordinary felt like. He signed the papers at midnight, his signature shaky but deliberate. In the morning, he had them couriered back to Sinclair Holdings. 3 days later, he received confirmation. All debts released. The NDA was active. And in a separate envelope, a cashier's check for $500,000 with a note that said, "Use it wisely." Nathaniel stared at Audrey's handwriting, the same elegant script that used to leave him notes on the kitchen counter. "Don't forget your meeting at 3. Your mother called, call her back. I love you." Always small reminders that someone was paying attention, someone cared. He'd taken them for granted until they stopped. He deposited the check and sat with his parents in their living room. "I need to figure out what to do next." "You could go back to school," his father suggested. "Get an MBA, start fresh in a new industry." "Who would hire me after this? My name is poison." "Then change your name," his mother said simply. "Start over completely. New city, new career, new life. Leave Nathaniel Pierce behind and become someone else." The idea was terrifying and liberating at the same time. He could walk away from everything, everyone who knew him, everyone who judged him. He could be nobody again, and this time maybe he'd appreciate it. But first, he needed to do something. He drove back to San Francisco one last time. The city looked the same, but he felt different moving through it. Smaller, more honest. He parked outside a modest apartment building in the Mission District and checked the address 3 times before going inside. He knocked on apartment 3B. A young woman answered, baby on her hip toddler clinging to her leg. She recognized him immediately, and her expression hardened. "Mr. Pierce?" "Lisa, I know you don't want to see me, but I needed to come here." Lisa Rodriguez had been his executive assistant for 4 years before he'd fired her to cut costs. Single mother, 2 kids, she'd begged for severance and he'd refused. "I'm sorry. For firing you without warning, for not giving you severance, for treating you like you were replaceable when you held my entire schedule together for 4 years. Lisa stared at him. "Why are you here?" "Because I owe you an apology, and I owe you this." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000. "It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's what I can afford right now. I don't want your money. It's not charity. It's what I should have given you when I let you go. Please, take it for your kids." Lisa looked at the check, then at him, then back at the check. "Sinclair Holdings already hired me. I start next week as a senior coordinator. Better pay than you ever gave me, better hours, full benefits." She handed the check back. "Keep your money, Mr. Pierce. I don't need it anymore." "Lisa, please. I'm trying to make things right." "You can't. Some things you break, you can't fix." She started to close the door, then paused. "But for what it's worth, I heard what happened. And I'm not happy about it. I'm not celebrating your downfall or anything. I'm just glad I don't work for you anymore." The door closed. Nathaniel stood in the hallway holding the rejected check, feeling the weight of every bad decision he'd ever made. He tried 6 more people. Former employees, business partners he'd screwed over, people he'd hurt on his way up. Every single one refused his money. Some because they didn't need it anymore, others because they didn't want anything from him. One man actually laughed in his face. By the end of the day, Nathaniel sat in his father's car outside his old building, watching strangers come and go from the lobby he used to own. His phone buzzed. A news alert. Audrey Sinclair named Forbes' most powerful woman of the year. Profile reveals hidden empire controlling global infrastructure. When asked about her ex-husband, Sinclair declined to comment, saying only, "I wish him well. I wish him well." 4 words that somehow hurt more than any revenge could have. She wasn't angry. She wasn't vindictive. She was indifferent. He'd become so insignificant to her that she couldn't even muster the energy to hate him. Nathaniel drove back to Sacramento as the sun set, painting the sky orange and purple. Somewhere in New York or London or Singapore, Audrey was probably in a boardroom making decisions that would affect millions of people. And here he was moving back in with his parents at 38, trying to figure out how to rebuild a life from nothing. He'd lost everything. His company, his money, his reputation, his wife. Everything he'd thought defined him was gone. And what remained was just a man flawed and broken and finally starting to understand what he'd thrown away. 6 months passed in a blur of mundane reality. Nathaniel got a job at a small consulting firm in Sacramento, making $60,000 a year. It was honest work helping local businesses with strategy, nothing glamorous, nothing that would make headlines. His coworkers didn't know who he was, and he kept it that way. He went by Nathan instead of Nathaniel. He wore khakis instead of custom suits. He drove a used Honda instead of a Porsche. His cubicle mate Jerry talked endlessly about his kids' soccer games and his wife's book club. Nathaniel listened and realized he'd never had conversations like this before. Real conversations about real life. He'd spent so long talking about deals and acquisitions that he'd forgotten how to talk about anything that mattered. One afternoon, his boss called him into her office. Margaret Chen was 55, sharp as a knife, and had built her firm from nothing over 30 years. "Nathan, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." Nathaniel's heart sank. She'd figured it out. "Okay. Are you Nathaniel Pierce, the tech guy who went bankrupt?" There was no point lying. "Yes." Margaret leaned back in her chair. "I thought so. Recognized you from the news coverage. You look different without the expensive haircut and the attitude, but it's you." "Are you firing me? Why would I fire you? You show up on time, you do good work, you don't act like you're better than everyone else." She studied him. "You're actually a halfway decent consultant when you're not trying to be a billionaire." "Thank you, I think. But I need to know something. Why are you here? With your experience, you could be working for a major firm, making 10 times what I pay you. Why settle for this?" Nathaniel thought about it. "Because I'm trying to learn how to be a person again instead of a resume, and because you were the only one who'd hire me." Margaret laughed. "Fair enough. Keep doing what you're doing, Nathan. You're good for this place." That night, Nathaniel had dinner with his parents. His mother made pot roast, and they ate in the same kitchen where he'd had breakfast as a kid. "I got a promotion today," he said. "Small one, but still. Junior consultant to senior consultant." His father raised his glass. "Congratulations, son. I'm proud of you." "Dad, it's a $5,000 raise at a company with 12 employees. It's nothing compared to what I used to have." "It's everything compared to what you used to be," his father corrected. 6 months ago, you were a selfish, arrogant man who treated people like stepping stones. Now you're someone who helps small business owners save their companies. That's growth, Nathaniel. That matters. His mother reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Have you thought about reaching out to Audrey?" "The NDA says I can't contact her." "No, it says you can't talk publicly about your marriage. It doesn't say you can't apologize privately." She paused. "I think you need to, sweetheart. Not for her sake, for yours. You need to close that chapter properly." Nathaniel thought about it for weeks. What would he even say I'm sorry seemed insufficient. I was wrong felt too simple. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too blind to see what I had sounded accurate, but also pathetic. Finally, he sat down and wrote a letter. Not an email, an actual letter on paper, because that felt more honest somehow. He wrote 17 drafts before he got it right. "Dear Audrey, I know I don't have the right to contact you, and you have every reason to ignore this letter. But I needed to tell you something I should have said 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, or any day during our marriage. I was wrong. About everything. I was wrong to dismiss you, to ignore you, to treat you like you were insignificant. I was wrong to value money over character and status over substance. I was wrong to think I built anything alone, most of all. I was wrong to believe that you were lucky to have me when the truth was the opposite. I was the lucky one, and I threw it away for someone who left the moment things got hard. You gave me 5 years of loyalty, and I repaid you with contempt. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not the money or the company or the empire. I lost you. And that's the real tragedy of my life. I hope you're happy, Audrey. I hope you're surrounded by people who see your value and treat you the way I should have. You deserve so much better than me. Sincerely, Nathaniel." He mailed it to Sinclair Holdings headquarters in New York, knowing it would probably be intercepted by her assistant or her legal team. He didn't expect a response. He just needed to say it. 2 weeks later, he came home to find a package on his parents' doorstep. No return address, just his name in familiar handwriting. Inside was a small wooden box, the kind that might hold jewelry. Nathaniel opened it with shaking hands. Inside was his wedding ring, the one he'd left on the table the day he'd asked for the divorce. And underneath it a note in Audrey's handwriting. "You were right about one thing. Some things can't be bought back once they're given away, but I forgive you anyway, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I hope you find yours. A. Nathaniel sat on his parents' porch and cried. Not the desperate, broken crying from 6 months ago, but something deeper and cleaner. Grief mixed with gratitude. She'd given him forgiveness he didn't deserve, and somehow that hurt more than any revenge could have. His mother found him there an hour later. She didn't say anything, just sat beside him and held his hand the way she'd done when he was small and had skinned his knee or failed a test. She forgave me, Nathaniel said. Of course she did. That's what strong people do. They let go of anger because holding on to it would diminish them. His mother looked at the ring in his hand. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. Keep it, I guess. As a reminder. A reminder of what? Of the man I was and the man I don't want to be anymore. Life continued its quiet rhythm. Nathaniel helped a family restaurant restructure their finances and stay open. He advised a local bookstore on inventory management. He taught a night class at community college on business basics. None of it was glamorous, but all of it mattered to someone. One evening, 9 months after the bankruptcy, Nathaniel was having coffee at a small cafe when someone sat down across from him. He looked up and froze. It was Marcus Fitzgerald, one of the men who'd pulled out of the Singapore deal, one of Audrey's partners now. Mr. Pierce, or should I say Nathan, Marcus, I'm surprised you recognized me. I almost didn't. You look different. Happier, maybe, or at least more real. Marcus ordered a coffee. I wanted to talk to you. I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I think I do. When I pulled out of that deal, I told myself it was business. Just business. But the truth is, Audrey called me personally. She told me what you'd done, how you'd treated her, and she gave me a choice. Stand with you or stand with her. Marcus stirred his coffee. I chose her. Not because of her money or her power, but because I've known Audrey Sinclair for 15 years. She helped me when my company was failing. She never asked for credit or recognition, just quietly made sure I had what I needed to succeed. When she told me you'd divorced her and offered her $10 million like she was worthless, I was disgusted. Nathaniel felt shame wash over him. I understand. Because here's what you need to know. Every person who abandoned you, every partner who pulled out, every investor who fled, we all knew Audrey. We'd all been helped by her at some point. Some of us owed her our entire careers. When she asked us to step back from Pierce Industries, it wasn't manipulation, it was justice. She destroyed me. No, she stopped protecting you. There's a difference. Marcus leaned forward. You know what she told me when I asked if I should warn you? She said you'd never believe it. She said you thought you were untouchable, that you'd built everything yourself, that you didn't need anyone. She was right, wasn't she? Nathaniel nodded, unable to speak. But here's the thing I came to tell you. Last month, Audrey was in Sacramento for a meeting. Private, very hush-hush. She asked me about you. Wanted to know if I'd heard anything, if you were doing okay. Marcus smiled slightly. She still cares about you, Pierce. Even after everything, she still checks to make sure you're surviving. That's the kind of person she is. After Marcus left, Nathaniel sat in the coffee shop until it closed. Audrey was still watching over him from a distance, still making sure he didn't completely fall apart. Even now, even after he'd hurt her in the worst way possible, she was protecting him. The next day, he volunteered at a homeless shelter, then a food bank, then a literacy program. He started using his business skills to help nonprofits operate more efficiently. He didn't do it for recognition or redemption. He did it because for the first time in his life, he wanted to be useful to people who couldn't give him anything in return. A year after the divorce, Nathaniel received a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Pierce, this is Catherine Winters from Sinclair Holdings. We met briefly during the legal proceedings. Nathaniel's stomach tightened. I remember. What can I do for you? Ms. Sinclair wanted me to inform you that the 5-year term of your NDA has been waived. You're free to discuss your marriage publicly if you choose. The financial agreement remains in place, but the silence requirement has been lifted. Why? Ms. Sinclair felt that holding you to silence indefinitely was unnecessarily punitive. She said, and I quote, "He's suffered enough. Let him tell his story if he wants to." After the call ended, Nathaniel sat in his small apartment and thought about what this meant. He could write a book, give interviews, tell everyone what had happened from his perspective. He could reclaim some piece of his narrative. But what would be this point to make himself look better, to justify his mistakes, to drag Audrey through public scrutiny when she'd already given him more mercy than he deserved? He called his mother. "Audrey released me from the NDA. Are you going to talk?" "No, I don't think so. My story isn't important. What I learned from it is." 2 years after the bankruptcy, Nathaniel was offered a position at a respected consulting firm in San Francisco. The pay was good, the work meaningful. He'd rebuilt his reputation slowly, one honest project at a time. He'd never be a billionaire again, but he didn't want to be. On his first day back in the city, he walked past the building that used to house Pierce Industries. It was now called Sinclair Innovation Center. A plaque by the entrance listed the building's purpose: dedicated to fostering ethical business practices and supporting entrepreneurs from underrepresented communities. Audrey had turned his empire into something that actually helped people. That evening, Nathaniel went to a charity gala, the first high society event he'd attended in 2 years. He went because his new firm was sponsoring it, not because he wanted to network or be seen. He stood in the corner nursing a club soda, watching people he used to know pretend they didn't recognize him. Then the room went quiet. Audrey had entered. She wore a simple black dress, her hair down for once, and she moved through the crowd with the same quiet grace he remembered. People parted for her, naturally drawn to her presence, but respectful of her space. She was surrounded by security and advisors, but somehow she still seemed alone. Their eyes met across the room. Nathaniel's heart stopped. He didn't know what to do. Should he approach? Should he leave? Should he pretend he hadn't seen her? Audrey made the decision for him. She walked over and the crowd whispered behind her. "Nathaniel, I heard you were back in the city." "Audrey, you look well." "So do you. Different, but well." She studied him. "I heard about the work you're doing with nonprofits. It's good work." "It's nothing compared to what you've built." "It's exactly what it needs to be." She paused. "I read your letter, the one you sent 2 years ago. I didn't think you'd see it. My assistant tried to intercept it, but I make it a point to review anything marked personal." Audrey's voice softened. "It meant something to me. The apology, the honesty. It didn't change what happened, but it helped me let go of some of the anger." "I meant every word." "I know. That's why it mattered." She looked around the room. "I have to go. But Nathaniel, I want you to know something. I don't regret our marriage. Even with how it ended, I don't regret it. Those 5 years taught me something important about myself, about what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not. So thank you for that lesson, even if it was painful." "Audrey, She touched his arm gently. "Be happy, Nathaniel. Find someone who sees you for who you really are, and love them better than you loved me. That's all I want for you." She walked away surrounded by her people, moving back into the orbit of power and influence that was her birthright. Nathaniel watched her go and felt something shift inside him. Not closure exactly, but acceptance. He'd lost her and he'd deserved to lose her, and that was simply the truth he had to live with. But he could live with it. He could wake up every morning and choose to be better than he'd been the day before. He could help people without expecting anything in return. He could value loyalty and kindness and the quiet strength of people who didn't need to announce their worth. He could become the man Audrey had deserved all along, even if she'd never see it, even if it was too late, even if all he had left was the knowledge that he'd finally learned the lesson she'd been trying to teach him. 5 years later, Nathaniel stood in a small church in Sacramento, watching his former cubicle mate Jerry's daughter get married. Jerry had become a real friend, the kind who showed up when you needed help moving furniture or just needed someone to watch the game with. The kind of friend Nathaniel had never had when he was rich, because rich people didn't have friends, they had contacts. After the ceremony, Jerry clapped him on the shoulder. "Thanks for coming, man. Sarah was happy you made it. Wouldn't have missed it. Hey, you still seeing that teacher? The one from the literacy program?" Nathaniel smiled. "Yeah, we're taking it slow, but it's good. Really good." "She know about your past?" "All of it. I told her everything on our 3rd date. Figured she deserved to know who I used to be." And she stuck around anyway. She said my past doesn't scare her. It's my present that matters. Nathaniel watched the bride and groom dancing. She's right, you know. We're not our mistakes. We're what we do after we make them. That night, Nathaniel went home to his modest apartment and found a letter in his mailbox. The return address was Sinclair Holdings. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a wedding invitation. Audrey Sinclair and Dr. James Martinez request the honor of your presence at their wedding. The ceremony was in 3 months in a private location, limited guests only. At the bottom in Audrey's handwriting, I wanted you to know that I found what I was looking for. Someone who sees me, really sees me. I hope you found the same. No hard feelings, just gratitude for the path that led me here. A. Nathaniel held the invitation and felt tears streaming down his face. But they weren't tears of regret or loss. They were tears of genuine happiness. Audrey had found someone worthy of her. Someone who would value her the way he should have. Someone who wouldn't make the mistakes he'd made. He wouldn't attend the wedding. That would be inappropriate. But he would send a gift. Something simple and meaningful. Maybe a set of the books she used to read on quiet Sunday mornings, the ones he'd never noticed because he'd been too busy checking his phone. Nathaniel set the invitation on his shelf next to the wooden box that held his old wedding ring. Reminders of who he'd been and who he'd become. The man who'd had everything and lost it all. The man who'd learned that true wealth wasn't measured in billions, but in the quality of your character and the integrity of your relationships. He'd lost an empire, but he'd found something infinitely more valuable. He'd found himself. And in losing Audrey, he'd learned the most important lesson of his life. When you discard the person who quietly holds your world together, you may not realize it until everything collapses without them. The foundation you thought you built alone was never yours to begin with. And the moment that foundation is removed, you discover exactly how much you never actually owned. Some people spend their entire lives learning that lesson. Nathaniel Pierce had learned it the hard way, and it had cost him everything. But it had also saved him, because the man he'd become was worth more than the empire he'd lost, and that finally was enough.